matter what you do and no matter how you do it, God is not going to change how much he loves you because it is out of his character to do so.
Crying out to you in our brokenness for the things that are wrong in our own lives, for the things that are wrong in the world.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Creek Conversations. Thank you for tuning in. Happy Advent. Merry Christmas.
Well, we got to do Advent first and then Christmas.
You're right.
Technically speaking.
I'm getting a little too excited to celebrate the birth of Jesus.
I was listening to something the other day talking about how kind of in the West we've changed things from how the church has traditionally done Advent, where Advent was a season of waiting, even kind of a season of lament, as you're working through the darkness until you get to Christmas. And then it was the day to celebrate. And then you have this whole celebration of Christmas and Christmastide following Christmas. We've kind of flipped that around, so 12 days of Christmas, that's like after Christmas, right? Mm-hmm. And it's that season after Christmas. But we've kind of taken that as Christmas has become commercialized, we hype up the season before Christmas, and then you hit Christmas, and then everybody breathes a sigh of relief that it's over or something like that, which is kind of antithetical to oh no, Jesus is here now. Now it's time to celebrate.
Yeah, now we got to go. Now we got to move.
So anyway. All right. So we're talking about
service.
Service, practices of service to kind of help us through this season.
And I've written a lot of newsletters. A lot of them. I've done a lot of spiritual practices now. I've yet to quote Billy Graham, which is probably one of the more prominent spiritual influences among the American people.
Okay.
But he has a really good one.
Yeah.
It says, the Bible teaches that we have a Christian duty to help our neighbors in their time of need. We are called by God to bring the water of life for both soul and body. God created them both, and his purpose is to redeem them both, which is a very different thought. Yeah,
that redemption of both our spirits and the physical world around us. Yeah. All right. So why do we serve? Why is service a thing that we do? We've talked about practices of solitude. We've talked about practices of meditation, reading scripture, worship. Those things, there's definitely a God-oriented direction to a lot of that. Now, service, at least as we initially interact with the discipline or the practice of service, seems to be very others-oriented. So why service, and how does this orient us towards God?
Yeah, I mean, in the Bible, we're taught to reflect Christ in our actions and everything we do. And Christ was a very serving individual. He is the child of God, and yet he came to serve us, which is a very backwards view of things. And so, and I think service even today is still very backwards. It's, us serving people that they would normally think, well, I'm just lesser than you, therefore, which is not true. Nobody's lesser than a person, but they view themselves as lesser than another person, and yet that person is reaching out to love and to help them. I think one of the examples I gave was inviting somebody to your Thanksgiving dinner, your Christmas celebration. I know that that Kristen and I have a friend that has not had a permanent person to celebrate the holidays with as her family life. And I'm not going to say her name just for her safety, but her family life hasn't been the best. It's been very inconsistent with lots of family drama, like way more than I can ever comprehend in my own life. And we invited her to celebrate Thanksgiving with her family this upcoming weekend, because they wanted to celebrate a weekend late. And they said, and she said, yeah, I mean, I don't know what to say, because this is not normal for me to have a family that reaches out to me and does all this stuff. And it was just very sad to hear that.
Yeah.
But it's the kind of service that we should strive for, is like making that kind of impact in a person that makes them think, oh, there is something different. This is a different feeling. This is a different emotion.
Yeah.
I just think that's something we should be striving for.
Yeah, what for us in the Church of the Brethren, one of the the quintessential examples of Jesus serving is Jesus washing feet in John 13. It's something that we reflect on quite often. But like at the end of that, Jesus says, "Now that I've done this for you, you ought to do it for one another." And we understand that that's a bigger life of service to one another. Jesus has come to serve, and now we are called to follow that example. I also think a lot when it comes to service and humility and really following the way of Jesus. Philippians 2, there's this beautiful, some think it's an ancient hymn that talks about Jesus completely emptying himself and becoming a servant, becoming like a slave, becoming, humbling himself. And so we're invited into that pattern of following Jesus. And I think service too is like humans we're created for relationship, right?
Right.
Adam and Eve, they're created to be in relationship with God. They're created to be in relationship with each other. They're created to be in relationship with creation around them, right? So we're in this interdependent relationship. And so service is a part of that. And I was thinking that, oftentimes when we think of service, we think of the benefits for the person that is being served.
Right.
Being helped. And that's really true. And, sometimes in parts of the church, we've tended to focus on people's spiritual side of their spiritual life, which, was really interesting, pulling Billy Graham's quote that's saying like spiritual, physical, God's plan for both of them is to ultimately be redeemed. Right. So it's not, heaven is not, or, the end of things is not disembodied spirits floating around, but an enfleshed existence in new heavens and new earth. And so service is one way that we can care for people's physical body, right? But I also think that, I came across this a number of years ago. I think he's a sociologist, and it's called the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right?
Yeah.
And what this is, it's kind of like a pyramid. You can Google it and look it up. But at your base level of need is just your physiological needs. Like I need air, I need food, I need water, shelter, clothing, those kinds of things. And then you can start to build up. And the peak of that pyramid is like, now that my needs have been taken care of, now that I feel safe, and some other needs, now I can start to think about morality.
Yeah.
Now I can start to think about ethics. Now I can start to think about like religion and a spiritual life.
Right.
But unless I have those other needs met, it makes it really hard for someone who is starving to death to think about, what does a relationship with Jesus mean? So service is ways that we can meet those needs and have further conversations.
Right.
So there's part of that. So I think that's really important for us in thinking about how we serve people. But the other side of serving is like the served is helped, right? But the server
Yes.
also benefits from this action. Yeah, I was thinking about some of our formational practices or habits that help shape us into Jesus people. Really connects our spiritual and our physical together, and that's one of the things that we've talked about with spiritual practices. Is there's a physical element to that, whether that is kneeling, whether that is fasting, whether that is quiet or like there's a physical component to that, and there's a spiritual aspect to that relationship with God.
Yes.
And I think
yes.
like service, it's kind of like out there in center. You are doing something, you are interacting with someone. And when you realize that there is a spiritual component to that, it's like when our spirits, our minds, and our bodies are all cooperating in one action, I think it draws us closer into who God is and who God wants us to be. And I think of some of the times that have been most impactful on my own spiritual life have been times when I've led like work camps or service projects or mission trip kinds of things where you're out of your comfort zone, where you're interacting with people that are maybe different from you in some kind of way, where you're hands-on with some kind of physical project. And that can be like building a home, it could be like, BDM type things, Brethren Disaster Ministries, and you're putting roofs on and you're doing drywall and all that stuff. Wonderful. But service could also be like writing a card to someone.
Right.
And sometimes whether it's our physical limitations or limitations of time or other things that are limiting factors, sometimes we can't always be building the home and putting the roof on and doing all that kinds of things. And so there's other ways that we can be serving people around us. So those have been some of the most impactful spiritual experiences of my life. And I think, again, when it's that physical and that spiritual side, like walking hand in hand in a very clear way, it connects me more to who God's created me to be.
Right. And I mean, like part of like an interesting part of service is it's not like one size fits all for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
And so like you need to learn to address it in a specific manner how that person needs it. So like for instance, like when you address a child versus an adult, when you address an adult, you can have an adult conversation, you can talk to them, you can if you're having an argument, you can hash things out and figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
With a child, you can't just stand above them and talk to them, because if you do that, they're either not going to listen to you, or they're going to cry, or they're not going to hear you, or like they're just not going to comprehend and or want to listen.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas if you get down on a knee and you start having a conversation with them, that is addressing them at their level, and it's much more direct.
Mm-hmm.
And so like, you're not going to go up to a rich person and hand them money as a donation and say, here, it looks like you really need this. But if you go over to a poor person and do that, they're probably going to enjoy it a lot more.
Mm-hmm. So how do we serve people that are financially or materially better off than we are?
Sure. I mean, it's not a one size fits all thing. Like each person is going to have their own struggles.
Mm-hmm.
No matter who you are as a person, you are going to have struggles of some kind. Like I think the example I gave in the newsletter is, people that are financially better off, sometimes may have some social hurt going on there. And inviting them into your world, not because you want anything from them, but because you want them to experience community. Or another idea would be like, I don't know, helping them if it's a well-off elderly person, sitting there and going like, well, why don't I help shovel the driveway for you? Or why don't I help mow the lawn for you? Finding a need that is just there and meeting it is what service is. It's not, don't get me wrong. There's nothing wrong with what I'm about to say here. Serving in food shelter or homeless shelters and food pantries and soup kitchens all are fine and good, and you should do that. But also it's looking for that also personal need with someone that you may know, like on a direct level.
Yeah.
I know somebody to me that has been huge is like whenever it was at our wedding reception, Kristen and I's reception, that one of my friends came up to me and he said, you don't know this, but you didn't give up. And that meant the world to me. And I was like, what? I would love to know more, but I want to know what are you saying? Give me context. And he said, well, when you and I first met, you didn't want to have anything to do with me. And I could tell that. I could tell, this is like, I don't know, 5-6 years ago. He's like, I could tell that you didn't want to have anything to do with me. I was an annoying little middle schooler, like, and you were like just about to graduate high school, and more than 5 to 6 years ago. So, like, of course you didn't want to talk to me because like I was just getting on your nerves. And I was like, well, yeah, but at the same time, like, you have grown so much. And he goes, yes, and I grew because you helped me do that. You didn't give up on me. You never walked away. You just, you still talked with me. And I was like, yeah, because that's what we should do. Like, that's not an abnormal thing. He goes, but it is. And so, like, the amount of times that I'll like get into conversations with somebody, or I'll watch like other Christians talk to people, and they're like, they'll talk to the other person saying, well, you're so kind and you're so loving, and and they're just like, well, yeah, because that's what we're supposed to do. And the unfortunate reality is what we're supposed to do is not the normality. And so like that kindness that we show, specifically like the world shows it around Christmas time, around the holidays, should be something that we show all year long. Obviously around the holidays, certain businesses or organizations are going to have more lenient structure to if you can go serve somewhere or if you can go volunteer your time. But like, even if it's, you get off work and you got like an hour and you volunteer your time at like a food pantry, there are plenty of food banks and food pantries and whatever that need your help. So that's
one of the things that you touched on too, is I think we need to be a little aware that sometimes when we're serving people, we can turn people into a project.
Yes.
And I think I said earlier, like, service is about relationship. We're intended for relationship. So serving in the food pantry is great. Maybe you have an opportunity to like sit down and eat with someone, or build some kind of connection with that person. And then it's not just, I'm here doing my good deed, serving in the pantry or whatever, but I want to show this person that they are important, that they are, an image bearer of God's, and build that relationship so that people aren't, they're not just projects. Because while we're serving someone today, they may be serving us tomorrow, or other people might be serving us. So it's, I think that's maybe just something for us to be aware of. So service is maybe an easy thing, an easy step here around Christmas, but we wanted to chat and issue some challenges, maybe some things to think about over this Advent season as we're going about our routines. As people tend to be focused on buying things. Maybe this is a way to divest yourself of some things or some time and to invest it in people.
Yes. Yeah. One of my good college friends, an amazing quote that I think I put at the end of the newsletter. He once said, in this time of year and all year round, we should be loving other people even though they don't deserve it because we didn't either yet. Christ loved us. And so in this time of year, just remember, even when someone's aggressive towards you or rude, or, maybe you just went Black Friday shopping and someone ran you over with a shopping cart, you didn't deserve the love either, and yet you got it. So just reply with a smile and just keep going and keep loving others. And that's what we're supposed to be about as Christian believers.
Yeah.
So yeah.
All right. Thanks, Matt.
Yeah.
We'll be back, I think next week.
Yeah.
So hope you're having a good Advent season, and we'll see you next time.
All right. Sounds good. Bye-bye.